Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Dynasty Drip today. We got a super fun show for you. We're going to be doing late round steals. I'm here with Seth, FF, the at home dad. Thank you for joining us today, man.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sam, for having me on here. I'm excited to, get on, chat with you. Just really dive into some of these guys that you can get at the end of drafts. That it's a little more hope than anything else, but there's a lot of league winners, if you will, get taken from this part of the draft. So it's an exciting part of the draft to dive into. So thanks for having me
Oh,
on.
100%, man. I've been doing mostly Dynasty content all summer, so it's time for redraft. So we're going to give you guys a quick intro, and then we're going to get into the video. Okay, guys, so we're going to get this thing kicked off. Seth is going to come at you with his first player. He's starting off with a quarterback, a guy actually being featured in a video of mine on Monday as well. So, Seth, I am 100% with you here. Why do you like Jordan Love as a late round guy this year in fantasy football?
Yeah, and that's great to hear because I was like, oh man, are we gonna be fighting on our the first one here? But great to hear that we're in the same boat here. I'm going with Jordan Love as a late round quarterback that I really like getting later in drafts, especially if I've really prioritize wide receiver and running back at the top of the draft, or maybe I got like one of the elite tight ends, but for whatever reason, I didn't, wasn't able to pull the trigger on a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson. Jordan Love is one of these quarterbacks that I like as a prototype for these late round quarterbacks that I can get that have a plethora of weapons around them, and they are taking a bit of a hit because last season they were dinged up. And so Jordan Love, I think, is in one of these exact spots. He also has some real hype around him that I don't think is being reflected in his ADP or in his comparison to some other quarterbacks in this range, especially with their rookie Golden coming in and looking really good so far, and pairing him with Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs, and who knows what's going on with Christian Watson's hamstring, but maybe there's some potential for him to actually live up to his potential there. And that's not even talking about guys like Dontavion Wicks and Savion Williams, and they just have a wealth at wide receiver. And they also have a running back that's not known for being a great pass catching running back, but one that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and hopefully puts them in some good extended drive type of situations because he's able to continue picking up first downs. So Jordan Love has this good balance of volume that should be there, rebounding in terms of health, and then just a ton of weapons where he should be the prime fantasy option on this team, because it's going to be tough to pick week to week who the guy that's going to get the focus of that offense is going to be. But we know that Jordan Love is going to be the one handling the rock and distributing it. And that's why I'm excited for him as a potential late round quarterback grab for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do not need to fully repeat most of what you said because I'm basically in step with you here, man. I mean, Jordan Love, recent, let's say, sleeper has him going off the board, QB 15, QB 16, kind of ADP wise.
Yep.
Just like you said, I mean, last year, I'm trying to think back, Jordan Love probably going on the board closer to QB 9, QB 10 in that range, because he did have a lot of hype coming in from his hot finish the year before. And just like you said, I mean, what held him back last year was mostly the injury. And then I think he kind of just came back and he was playing at not 100%. So it's really hard to fully know what he even could have looked like last year. And basically, we're just holding his injury from last year against him. And I don't think it's really being put into, his upside that he could finish as a top 5 guy. Whereas there's guys in his range. While I may like some of the guys in his range in a dynasty sense, in a redraft sense, like I don't know, man. Like, is there a version of Jared Goff that's a top 3 quarterback? I don't really think there is. Like, as much as I like him, he would have to throw like 50 touchdowns, like, for that to happen. Whereas Jordan Love, he actually is a little more athletic than people give him credit. And when it comes down to it, something that I have always prioritized in fantasy football is a good offensive coach and an efficient offense. And that's what Jordan Love has. So he has the upside because of that, but it also gives him an incredible floor as a guy that he's going to put these points up. And just like you said, he has the pass catchers to really help him out on that front.
Yep.
But moving into our next guy, I'm going to do a running back, someone that I just think is being drafted a little later than I would take them. Now, I do think there is some hype surrounding this player just because he changed teams and, he really kind of broke into the fold last year because of injury. But for me, Jordan Mason is a guy that in the late rounds of sleeper drafts, I absolutely love targeting. And it comes down to a couple of things for me. I think number one, Jordan Mason is a player that even if he does work in a supplemental role to Aaron Jones, I think he could still be a flex player or something like that in that front. But when it comes down to it, Jordan Mason has amazing contingent upside, basically, that if anything were to happen to Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason could literally smash just as hard as he did last year to start the season off, where he was a top 5 running back or something. Like he basically was that good when he was getting the touches. And I think the way Minnesota's probably going to use their offense, I mean, they did cycle in and out a couple running backs last year in addition to Aaron Jones, where they kind of mostly still went with Jones, but Jordan Mason is better than the guys that got touches in that offense last year. Jordan Mason is better than Ty Chandler. I guarantee you that. And so Jordan Mason may actually find himself in a red zone role to start the season. If not, maybe pick up some more touches as they try to keep Aaron Jones maybe a little fresher for what's probably going to be another potential playoff run for the Vikings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I was just looking at just a breakdown of where Jordan Mason is going in some of the sleeper drafts, and he's going right around ADP 107 and RB 36. So you're looking at a guy that you're essentially drafting him right around where he could finish. And I want to say last year he finished as RB 37 and a half PPR, 41 in PPR, but he also only played 12 games. And so when you try and figure like, okay, well, where could he potentially land, especially with either resting Aaron Jones or an Aaron Jones injury. Aaron Jones is 30 years old, so there is some opportunity there. Nobody wants to bet on injury, but as running backs get older, we know that age cliff is a very real thing for most running backs. So that really does open the door for Jordan Mason. I think one of the things that one of the things to keep in mind with a guy like Jordan Mason is if you're taking him there, he's going to sit on your roster for a little while as you're waiting to see what happens with him. So I think, be prepared for that aspect of it, because you are investing a good enough amount of your draft capital for when you're picking him up that he's going to sit there for a moment, unless something, and again, nobody wants to root for injury, but unless something does happen to Aaron Jones out in front of him. I'm curious if he's going to have the standalone value in that offense. But I definitely agree with you that he slots right into that number 2 role. And if there is going to be committee work, enough committee work to make him fantasy relevant, it's going to go to him and not to a guy like Ty Chandler.
Yeah, well, and just we're done with the Ty Chandler experiment. It's completely over there in Minnesota. So we're gonna move on to Seth's next player, a guy that honestly may be a little controversial to some people. I think people are really all over the map on this guy. But for you personally, Seth, what about Keon Coleman makes you a believer, or even just a believer in the upside? We have to all keep in mind, these are late round steals, late round picks. These are not smash this guy in the 3rd round of your fantasy draft type of players.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Keon Coleman is to me. Is you have Josh Allen that will be drafted in the top 3 rounds of your draft, unless everyone really sticks to the late round QB, but someone's going to pick him up early because he's just too valuable to be sitting around. So you got to imagine that someone is going to be catching the ball from him, and it can't all just be one guy. And I don't think that we're giving enough credit to the amount of volume that needs to be dispersed in this offense in order for it to match the levels that we know Josh Allen's gonna hit, right? Yes, Josh Allen's going to pick up plenty of points running the ball. We know that's going to be a thing, but there's going to be plenty of passing volume on this team for, Shakir and Coleman to have a role. The tight ends, who knows kind of where they all fall. I know Kincaid was a very hyped tight end prospect and hasn't quite hit as much as people would, want him to. But there's definitely volume to go around. And I think Coleman's one of these options where, because he didn't skyrocket as a rookie, people's perception of him is really being impacted by that. Most people I feel like have said, well, he didn't go for 1,000 yards as a rookie, so he's going to be garbage. And it's like, that's not really what we should be aiming for. That's not the standard we should set. Trying to figure out like, where can we find potential? And the fact that he's going in the 10th round, according to Sleeper ADP, that's late enough in the draft where I'm willing to go, all right, well, who are the other wide receiver 2s that are out there? And who has room for improvement? Who has an offense that can be trusted to improve? And when you're looking at him going alongside guys like Darnell Mooney, do we trust Atlanta to put up the same type of offense that we trust the Bills to put up? And to me, that's going to be the deciding factor. And that's why I'm okay with, with taking a shot on Keon Coleman. Do I like taking Shakir? Not both of them together on the same team, but I like taking either of those guys because I think there is a lot of upside for him. But with Coleman going later in drafts, he really fits the late round steal nameplate for this show, I'd say.
Yeah, and just to kind of continue with what you were saying, I think Coleman really brings up he's a good player in the sense of that you can treat him kind of in an opposite fashion to the way you would have to treat a Jordan Mason, in the sense that with Keon Coleman, you give that dude 3 or 4 weeks and you're going to know if you should hang on to him or if you can just cut bait on him. Where sometimes when you're playing more the late round running back kind of game, is you do kind of got to hang on to him if they're a handcuff. Otherwise, you probably didn't really draft them for the right reason anyway, because if you're just going to draft a handcuff to hang on him for like a week or two, it's like, well, I don't know, man. Like, it's probably not really worth it at that point. But a guy like Keon Coleman's like, after the first month of the season, he either took the jump from last year or he didn't. And we're going to see how the Buffalo offense is moving. And we're going to see if Shakir is still the number one option, or like you said, maybe it's Kincaid now, or maybe it is Keon Coleman, or maybe they signed Josh Palmer for a reason and he's better than any of us thought to start the season, which I doubt, but it is one of the possibilities. And Keon Coleman is at least in a situation, when you brought up Atlanta, it's the perfect comparison where it's just like Darnell Mooney has Drake London in front of him. Mm-hmm. He's not overtaking Drake London. That's not going to happen. It's a 1% chance unless there's some sort of injury. And Darnell Mooney's the one that's hurt already, not Drake London. Yeah. Whereas Keon Coleman's like, I'm fine with Khalil Shakir. He's been a guy I've always been fine to trade away. Never in love with the guy. I think he's a good player, but I don't really think he brings enough upside to be scared of him taking a Stephon Diggs level target share from the progression.
Yeah, and just to throw one more thing out there, Keon Coleman's median points per game last year was 8.1, right? And so I look at median points per game. If anybody wants to talk about it, see me afterwards. We're not going to fit that all in the show now, but it's a great way to look at 50% of their games, right? And so it gives a better view than the average can at times. And so if we would we be willing to say, you know what, with Keon Coleman coming in and taking over this number 2 spot, he could go up to, say, 10, an extra 2 points, median points per game, or maybe 11. If we're willing to say that, just a small increase to his workload, he's now hitting the same median points per game that was the wide receiver 36 last year, or really the wide receiver 36 over a span of every single week, looking at every wide receiver over the past 5 years. The threshold to be the wide receiver 36 was 11 points per game, and 11 points in any given week, which means Keon Coleman's going to hit you a 36 wide receiver 36 half of the time, and then his upside is going to be even greater, right? And like you said, if he becomes the 1 and Shakir becomes the 2, which, who knows what the probabilities of that? Maybe it's a 25%, whatever. It's definitely better than Darnell Mooney's percentage of overtaking Drake London.
Yes, 100%. So we're moving on. I got another running back. I guess I started making my list today, and I started putting a lot of running backs down, and then I forced myself to do a wide receiver later, but we are going to talk about another running back. This one does go a little later than Jordan Mason. And this one really is more of a traditional handcuff kind of late round guy. But I just want to talk about Trey Benson a little bit. He was so hyped last year that I don't think, minus a James Conner ACL injury, he was ever going to reach the hype that people were putting him at. But this year, I think for me, I just find a version of this story that maybe they do actually go with more of a 2-headed backfield. And he's just going so late still, all the way down at, RB 50 right here. Like, it's just so late, dude. All these names around here is like Bashal Tutin, Jerome Ford, Austin Eckler, Isaac Guerendo's going in front of him, who is literally hurt right now. Like Rashad White, Tajay Spears also hurt, Ramondre Stevenson. Like, I think there's a lot of guys that are going ADP-wise above Trey Benson that I'm not saying Trey Benson needs to be going as RB32 because he is a backup, and I totally understand that. But I do think it's definitely a couple rounds off at least. So for me, if you can get Benson this late, he does have some upside in the sense that we know what James Conner has done traditionally in this offense. So he brings that sort of, handcuff upside where definitely if you're a James Conner owner, obviously. But for me, I'm willing to take a bet and say that, you know what? We all expect James Conner to get hurt every year. It didn't happen last year. I think Trey Benson's going to play some games. I also just think he probably got better since last year. Like, we can't really hold against his rookie season where he didn't really see the field too much last year. I think there's some upside for him, especially in the range he's going. You just can't really beat that sort of like league winning potential going that late.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll throw in for Trey Benson is exactly building off of your point of we expect James Conner to be hurt every year. And so, again, I do a lot of thinking about perception of players. And the general perception last year with Benson was James Conner is going to get hurt. He hasn't had a great season in a couple of seasons. And then James Conner went out and had his 3rd best season of his career. And now everyone's going, oh, Trey Benson's wow, right? And so now the pendulum has shifted so much from Trey Benson's going to come in, he's going to take over, it's going to be his backfield because James Conner is not able to do what he was doing a few years ago, is all about Trey Benson. And now the pendulum shifted completely the opposite direction. And now it's all James Conner. James Conner's never going to get hurt. He's never going to have another injury. He's always going to have this backfield. And he's always going to be in the same spot that he was last year. And that short-sightedness is really creating a value for Benson. So I like that opportunity to snag him late.
Yeah, and there were just some names that I was going down the list of ADP, and I was like, who is taking Austin Eckler? I want to be. That's the one where you're just like not in my league. You're like, what league is Austin Eckler going before Trey Benson and Jordan Mason? Because according to Sleeper ADP, it's happening in an average sense. It is happening, and sometimes it's just funny. But name recognition can be everything sometimes in certain drafts. And so in that sense, I understand it. I love you, Austin Eckler. No hate on our front.
Yeah, and Austin Eckler just being involved in the fantasy community and like a cool dude doing all that, it's kind of like, you know what? I'll click the button for Austin.
Give him the round bump.
I'll give him a round bump and hope he's still there. Hope he still has it. But
100%.
Yeah, Trey Benson is definitely a good option here.
So we're going to move into Seth's third player. He has his second wide receiver in a row coming off the board. One of the most agile, shortest, athletic guys in the league, Wan'Dale Robinson. Very fun to watch. Very low ADOT last year. So what about Robinson this year? Has you convinced, or is it just kind of him building off last season?
So I think it's him building off of last season. I think it's the fact that he's in his third year, and maybe believing in myths here, but still remember when that was the thing, the 30-year breakout for wide receivers. But I also believe this is one of the things where Wan'Dale Robinson is still the number 2, right? And so this is kind of like the Darnell Mooney and Keon Coleman conversation about like, well, is Wan'Dale going to take over? No, he's not. Like, unless something drastic happens to Malik Neighbors, he's not going to take over. But at the price that he's going in drafts now, which is way lower than most other wide receivers that are wide receiver, very clearly wide receiver 2s on their team, he's going. Sleeper has him as an average ADP of 196 is what I pulled this morning. That's like, depending on your league, that's not even drafted, right? And so, if you're playing in a slightly shallower league, you might be able to get Wan'Dale Robinson in the last round or, second to last round, depending on who else is there. I mean, you're looking at guys around him like Xavier Leggett, Jalen McMillan. I mean, and everyone's kind of forgotten about McMillan after Tampa Bay's draft. So, Keenan Allen, all guys that either are pretty long in the tooth and we kind of know what they have, but then also like see it all fading away, or there's just so many questions around what they potentially can bring to the field. And Wan'Dale Robinson had a significant amount of volume last year. And yes, he had a really low ADOT last year, but you can also look to, I mean, it's still early, but look to Russell Wilson is probably the best quarterback the Giants have had since Eli Manning, which I'm not a Cowboys fan. I am a Cowboys fan, not a Giants fan, even though I live in New York. So it's tough to, watch Giants football every time I go to the bar and just watch terrible quarterback play between the Giants and the Jets. But Russell Wilson, probably one of the best quarterbacks they've had in a while. And also Jackson Dart looks to be the real deal. So even if it's not Wilson, Dart looks like he can do it. And then also Jameis Winston, yes, it's been a while. He's more known, I feel like, now for his off the field antics and just being kind of a good dude. But he's also has in his career one of the craziest seasons where he had 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions or something wild like that. Like he has the ability to sling the ball. So regardless of which of those 3 guys is the starting quarterback, he's gonna end up with better quarterback play than what he's had in his previous 2 years. And so I could see this being a general upswing. And if it's not, he got a decent amount of work last year. Does he take it that next little step further? I think he can. And where you're looking at where he's going in drafts, where it's basically free, let me pull the trigger on it. And then, month of September happens and it's all Darius Slayton or who knows who else they have on the depth chart behind those guys, right? There's that I can pull I can pull the plug on that experiment real quick and just scoop up another waiver wire type of ad, because that's essentially where he's going now anyways.
Yeah, and I really like how you spoke about the quarterbacks there, because you're 100% right. Like, everyone in fantasy, like, it is consensus that Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco are good for wide receivers. We all know that. We've seen it
Yep.
4 straight years. Whenever those guys go in, the wide receivers eat. Now, the team may lose, but the wide receivers eat. And just like you said, even same thing here, Russell Wilson is going to be an upgrade over what they had in general in the collectiveness of what was their season last year. And also, too, I think, just kind of zigging when people zag. I think Wan'Dale Robinson's a great example. Is everyone's zigging into Malik Neighbors being an absolute stud, right? Which is very, very true. I agree with that. Malik Neighbors had 170 targets last year. That number is probably not going to go up. And Wan'Dale Robinson was able to have 140 targets last year while Malik Neighbors had 170. So there is room for the same sort of situation potentially to occur, just like you said. And especially in a PPR league, man, I think Wan'Dale Robinson should be a guy that is on everyone's draft board late if you're looking to get someone that could slide into your flex spot, or maybe you play in a double flex PPR league, or you need a wide receiver 3. Like, he's the perfect player that if you go high, I like to really we talk about this a lot with the flex position in a show that we do on this channel called Flex Friday every year. But we talk about what do you need from your flex position on any given week, right? And how not every flex play every week is built the same. Sometimes you have really safe players on the rest of your roster and you need an upside guy at flex. But sometimes you have upside players in the rest of your roster, or very high volatility guys. Like, maybe you have a George Pickens and a Rashid Shaheed as your wide receiver 2 and your wide receiver 3, and you want some floor. You want a guy that's going to get you 7, 8, 9 targets. To end the year last year, I was just checking, Wan'Dale Robinson had over 9 targets in, I think it was 4 of the last 5 games. And that was with Malik Neighbors on the field. Like, these aren't games that Malik Neighbors was missing. This was not during the stretch where Neighbors was hurt. Neighbors was actually absolutely eating down the stretch last year. And Wan'Dale Robinson was still bringing in very high target numbers. And that's still assuming that he does not get any better, which there's always the chance that, just like you said, he's going into his 3rd year. He can improve as a player. He can have a better quarterback play.
Yeah. And I was looking down because I had to Google on my phone the list, the VIP list of quarterbacks that Malik Neighbors got 170 targets with, and Wan'Dale Robinson got 140 targets with, 170, 140. Daniel Jones had 10 games. Drew Lock had 8 games. Tommy DeVito had 3 games, and Tim Boyle had a game. So all 4 of those guys are the 4th string quarterback on the, and I mean, Tommy DeVito actually is the 4th string quarterback on the Giants roster right now. So, like, they're all 4th string quarterbacks here, right? And there's what you're getting, Wan'Dale as the wide receiver 69 or 68 on sleeper drafts right now, finished as the PPR wide receiver 36 and a total points perspective. So definitely a lot of opportunity for him to far exceed where he's going in drafts right now.
So we're going to move on to a player. He's going to be my only wide receiver on this list. And I got to say, this is a complete opposite of the Wan'Dale Robinson pick. I think it's actually a lot more in the Keon Coleman kind of range. They actually kind of go almost back to back. But I want to talk about Jaden Higgins a little bit, wide receiver on the Texans. And just in general, I think something for me is that most of the time, especially in the last 5 years, there have been some really very influential and kind of league-winning hits come from some of the rookies that go in this sort of range. And I think Jaden Higgins is one of those players that has the potential to do so, basically because of the quarterback he's going to be playing with. Like, we have seen CJ Stroud support multiple wide receivers in multiple seasons. A couple years ago, it was Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Last year, it was Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and kind of Tank Dell. I think Dell kind of turned into the third fiddle last year. And you know what? I'm going to toss in Christian Kirk as just a name here. I'm going to, as in a sense that one of these guys is probably going to be a playable wide receiver, whether it's Christian Kirk or Jaden Higgins. But I want to bet on the guy that was the second round pick and just someone that really kind of mimics a 70 to 80% version of Nico Collins. Like he's built in the same sense. Now he's not Nico. He's not as freak of an athlete as Nico Collins. Nico Collins, top 10 wide receiver in the league. So I don't want to compare him there. But CJ Stroud's probably going to be looking for this guy. I've already heard things that he seems to be running as the wide receiver 2 on the team. We'll see if that comes true, come draft season. But we're drafting early right now. I'm willing to take a chance on him. And the guy's going at wide receiver 50, wide receiver 53 on some sites. As much as we want to argue and, I like this guy as wide receiver 53 and I like this guy as wide receiver 53, I think you can like whoever you want as wide receiver 53, man, because you should be shooting for the moon. You should be aiming for someone that has the chance to be a difference maker, not just a Marvin Mims or whatever. I don't want to throw Marvin Mims under the bus. He's just a guy I don't personally believe in, and I see his name in the same range as a lot of guys we've been talking about today. But what are your thoughts on Jaden Higgins? Am I a little crazy, or do you think he has some potential upside this year?
So the way I look at rookies in general is I have my guys that I'm like, I like this guy. This is a guy that I'm really going after and I'm trying to target. But my general sense of rookies is everybody messes up rookies. Literally everyone messes up rookies. So there's no point that I ever go, I know this guy's going to be a bust, or I know this guy's going to be an absolute stud. I always go in it with the approach of I like this guy, but here's a laundry list of reasons why they could fail. Even though I love the tape, I love this, he has this statistical profile, whatever it is, right? There's always an opportunity for a rookie to fail, right? And on the flip side of that, and this is where I didn't actually choose, a little hint of who my fourth guy here is. I didn't choose any rookies for this, but this is that opportunity to go after these rookies because usually they get priced into a decent spot where you can pick them up. And if you're, drafting now in the beginning of August, take a shot at this guy because over the next few weeks of preseason, they might really pick up this head of steam, or they might go, you know what, this guy, it was a mistake. And you're able to read that a little bit more easily. And you can pull the plug on that experiment a whole lot quicker. So I haven't been a huge believer in Jaden Higgins. He's not one of the top guys on my list, but I know I'm fallible. And Higgins could turn into a great option. And really, Houston didn't have a wide receiver stay healthy last year. Any healthy wide receiver could hit 100 targets in this Houston offense. And if Higgins is that healthy wide receiver, that right there, again, compare him to a Marvin Mims, a healthy 17-game stretch of a good wide receiver in Houston, regardless of my personal feelings about them, and not about them, I know them as a person, but my personal feelings about their fantasy value doesn't matter, right? He's going to be able to put in that type of work in the fantasy scoring for you just because he played 17 games and was out there on the field for even if he's getting 40% of the snap count, he's going to be able to do enough to make it worth picking him at that point.
Yeah, and I think too, for me, two things I've always thought about with rookies is number one, and just like you said, if you are watching this or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that your rookie wide receiver to target in the late rounds has to be Jaden Higgins, but take your shots. And that's what you're saying is take your shots, because there is such a discrepancy in how wrong I could be, you could be, ADP can be. And that's what you're really trying to beat on any given basis, right? Is the point is as awesome as it is to take Malik Neighbors and him be a stud, you're taking him with your first round pick. He has to be a stud. Otherwise, you're going to miss on that pick. Jaden Higgins, if he turns into a wide receiver 2, you are so leaps and bounds beyond what all the other players in this range are going for.
Yeah.
And also just what I like about Jaden Higgins too. And, maybe this is me just trying to put some pieces together, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I think that Texans line could be pretty bad, and they could have a tough time running the ball this year. They had a not so great line last year, and they lost multiple pieces from that line. Now, maybe they turned it around in this offseason and got some guys in there, and they got some good coaching going on. But I could see him having to get this ball out and not be running the ball too well to start the season, especially if we are, bringing back Joe Mixon slowly into the fold. Like, we don't really know how that's going to go as of now. He could be totally healthy. But yes, 100%. We're going to move on to Seth's last player, a guy who really did burst onto the scene last year, finds himself in a different situation, though, this year. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts here on Rico Dowdle, now on the Carolina Panthers, for those of you watching, if you aren't as obsessive as we are following news all the way back in February and March of the NFL season.
Yeah, I think Rico Dowdle is in a interesting spot. He is backing up another running back that has kind of burst onto the scene a year ago in Chuba Hubbard. But he was able to do enough last year to finish as the running back 22 in PPR, depending on your scoring, right? And that to me is enough to kind of say, you know what, if there's any type of split type of work here, or the opportunity for Hubbard to not be as good as, as he has been, last year, there's an opportunity for Dowdle to step right in and take advantage of that work. And this is, again, one of those situations where it's more trusting the player and the opportunity that could be there. You're trying to make a projection of almost like a poker player. And I don't love doing those analogies to poker because it's a very finite set of possibilities. But you're trying to look and say, like, okay, what could create an opportunity for this player to have, to outscore their ADP. And I think for Dowdle, it's really not that much that needs to happen, because I think he can do it with a healthy Hubbard there, because he has explosiveness when he needs it. He can catch the ball. He does a decent enough job running between the tackles. It's not great. It's not, not going to be his forte, but he does a decent enough job doing it that he can be a 3-down back in those games where you need him to be. I wouldn't want him to do it 17 games out of the year, because I don't think he does that well at being a 3-down back and every down back. But if he's worked into it and he has those handful of games where the guy in front of him isn't healthy, he's going to massively outproduce his ADP.
Yeah, and I mean, something interesting too to keep in mind with Rico Dowdle for, those of you guys listening. I think a lot of times in these videos, sometimes we get so used to talking to other fantasy analysts or people that follow the stats and ADP as closely as we do, and sometimes we forget. But, he's going four-ish rounds after these other running backs we've spoken about on today's show. He's going 4 rounds after Trey Benson. He's going 4 rounds after Jordan Mason. And he really probably should just be grouped into a pretty similar tier with those guys. I mean, as much as I love Trey Benson, I don't know if he can be RB22. I'm projecting he has the upside to be an RB2. What do we know about Rico Dowdle, right? We know that when he had the lead role, he was good enough to be a running back too. Yep. And like you said, I mean, that's even just in a handcuff role. Like, he's going around just these other handcuff players. He's not going around guys that might get worked into the offense a little more, some of the players more in like a Tank Bigsby kind of role, or Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, J.K. Dobbins. Like, he's not going around the guys that are being projected to share targets and share roles in their offense. Yeah. But they did go out and sign Rico Dowdle this year after they gave Chuba Hubbard a contract last year. They also have Etienne's brother on the roster. Curious about that. I don't think he's beating out Dowdle. Just mentioning that for the people listening as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is one of the things is, you're always going to call your shots of where you think guys are going to have opportunities. And I think this Carolina team is one that's going to be undervalued at certain positions. And I think this is one of them. And if I can, lean into that undervaluing a little bit and scoop up a little bit more value, that's what we're trying to do in these late rounds. And again, if something were to happen to Hubbard, or if, maybe neither Hubbard or Dowdle were that high of a, draft capital type of position. Neither one of them are getting, a 15 million a year contract type of resetting the running back pay scale. There's not much on the coaches to say like, oh, Hubbard has to be the guy. So there's an opportunity for Dowdle to outplay him and get into that position. The opportunity is there. Does he do it? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. But if the opportunity's there and you're able to get him for dirt cheap, then it's worth making that pickup in my perspective.
Yeah, and just while we're talking about the Panthers, I'm just going to quickly drop a name. This may be more Dynasty, but for you guys listening, I think in redraft, he's going way too late as well if you have a deeper draft. Jalen Coker, man, I'm telling you, watch out for Jalen Coker this year, wide receiver, potentially wide receiver 2 on the Panthers. I just think he's a better player than Xavier Legette, and I don't think he's going high enough. But we're going to get into our last player. I did end up choosing a quarterback just because I made my whole list. And I felt bad that I didn't talk about any late round quarterbacks. And, that's kind of the OG late round steal, is a late round quarterback. That strategy became so immensely popular, almost to the point now that there maybe actually be some values taking quarterbacks earlier in drafts because so many players are going with late round quarterback. But I'm going to go with a guy, Trevor Lawrence, who I think mimics a lot of the things you actually mentioned with Jordan Love, is that this is a player who is going to be playing with a lot of weapons at his disposal, potentially some top 10 weapons in the NFL if Travis Hunter ends up hitting as a wide receiver as well, because they got Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. And I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of just one of those things where he's like the term, I think a lot of channels have done this one. I know one I always listen to. He always does a post-hype sleeper list, right? Guys that we were once super high on and hyped on. Trevor Lawrence is in that list, and now he's just disappointed so many times. But, he finally gets potentially the best offensive coach of his career, and he has potentially the best weapons around him he's ever had in Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. So why not take a shot on Trevor Lawrence, give him a month on your team, and if you don't like what you see, you can cut bait and play the streaming game at your quarterback position.
And final point on quarterbacks I'll throw out there is, especially in what most people are going to play, I would assume still is single QB leagues. You're going to have quarterbacks to swap throughout the season, right? And especially if you're not taking one of the top guys. If you go and you draft Trevor Lawrence and you're like, ew, why did I do that? He is disappointing, and he's disappointing me once again. You can easily drop him and pick up another guy, like maybe Caleb Williams starts coming on in the way that we expect him to, or maybe Cam Ward is, the rookie phenom that, the reason why he was drafted number 1, right? There's reasons why you can quickly pick up other quarterbacks. And really, in a single quarterback league, typical redraft where you're, around 15 to 16 spots on your roster, nobody should be housing multiple quarterbacks. So there's going to be guys out there that you can swap in and out of your lineup as needed. You can play the streaming quarterback game. And, that's why I think, picking up those late round guys, that it's like, hey, if Brian Thomas is going to be a top 5 wide receiver, like he's going in drafts in some circles, and if Travis Hunter is going to be all the things that anybody who's been hyped about him as a you know, bi-directional player. Trevor Lawrence has to have a good season in order for those things to be true. So it kind of creates a logic experiment of saying like, all right, well, if this is going to be true and this is going to be true, then this has to be true also in order to make them all true. So I like Trevor Lawrence. Not one of my guys, but I like the way that the thought comes together of he has the skill, he has the players around him. If it's not going to be now, it's probably not going to be ever that he's able to fully turn things on. And so I'm right there with you of these are the type of guys to go get late for quarterback.
Yeah, and he is my deep. I didn't take a quarterback. It's round 14. I'm looking at no one. Like just to put them in perspective, I would take Jordan Love over Trevor Lawrence. If anyone here is watching, you're on the clock. You heard us both talk about our players. We both would say go Jordan Love in that sense. And this could be a little too, like, might even be a 2 QB kind of advice where, if you're looking to get an upside out of your 2 quarterback and your super flex position. But Seth, I appreciate you coming on with me, man. I had a lot of fun. It was fun getting back into redraft. Any last notes? I'm going to give you 5-15 seconds of the floor real quick.
Yeah, no. Follow me on X at FF the At Home Dad. I'm trying to get more and more stuff out this season. Trying to get back into it while also coaching my kids football. It really reinvigorates me doing both of those things at once. So hit me up on X and let's have a conversation about this stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'll post his Twitter down in the bio as well, guys, if you want to hit him a follow. It'll be right next to mine. But thank you guys for coming and watching our video today. Late round steals. We hope you win your league, and let's take it easy, guys.